Okay, now that we've got that part of the body figured out, let's head up a little higher and we'll talk about how we can flatter people with sitting poses. This is a pose that really only slender people can handle. So when you've got someone who's thin, take advantage of that and do the poses that you can't do with other sizes of people. So yeah, bringing both those knees up like that, that can work well for those people who can handle it. In this kind of a sitting pose, it's very flattering to turn the body or the lower part of the body away from the camera and then twist the shoulders back toward the camera and especially the face. Now, this is not normally a pose I'd recommend, but he's a comfortable, casual guy, and so I wanted to reflect that. Keep in mind you need to use a long lens for this, otherwise the knees are going to be rather large if you use a short lens. I've mentioned this before about wrapping your arms around your shin, but this works out well here. But also notice that she's leaning forward, as opposed to the ones just previously where they were leaning backwards. So this is more intimate and more contact with the viewer. Here I resorted to that method of wrapping their arms around their shin, but I also dipped her right shoulder. And that, with her head tilt, gave us a nice S-curve. With her sitting on that motorbike the way she is, that widened out the thighs, and no girl is going to really appreciate that. So I found a different pose that worked by having her bend over like that and hide the thighs, and also we're seeing from this angle, we're not seeing how the thighs are being widened. So this worked out much better. When she was sitting, I made sure that her feet were going away from the camera rather than toward. Also, the cushiness of the chair allows her to sink in and help to hide some of the thickness in the thighs. Now here I goofed. I had her face the camera, and with her knees crunched up like that, oh my, no girl is going to really appreciate that kind of pose. So I reversed the concept, keeping her feet away from the camera, and that worked out much better. Here too, we've got those big thighs facing right into the camera, not very flattering. This would either need to be cropped or we need to change the pose. Okay, so I kept her pretty much in the same kind of pose. I flipped her the other way, but bringing the feet up hid the thickness of the thighs. Wow, well, we curled her up like a ball here, and that is not very flattering. It's good for posing rabbits, but not people. So pretty much I just came in closer, zoomed in tighter, and eliminated all the other problems. I don't think she'd like her thigh on this one, so we need to find a way to hide a little bit of that. So we achieved that by stretching out the pose and making it a horizontal composition, and that allows us to cut off a little of the bottom, or should I say her bottom. Because we're photographing pretty much straight into her, I used the shoes to hide a little bit of her bottom. A lot of these images are straight out of the camera, so they're fairly raw. But anyway, this is a little problem again with the thigh. And how we took care of it with an old cushy chair. This is not the most flattering pose, and she'd probably reject it immediately because of the prominence of her thighs. So I turned her the other way so that her legs would face away from the light, and then hid them behind that tall green stuff. Guys don't want to look like a ball either. I kind of crunched him up a little bit here in the pose, and this normally isn't a bad pose, but with the clothing and in the baggy clothing and the tight crop, it wasn't the most flattering for him. So I pulled back a little bit and spread out the pose, and I think the resulting pose is something that he'd like better. In about 40 years, I can count on one hand the number of times I've had a senior squat like this. I just don't like the pose because it looks like they're taking a, well, you know what I mean. Anyway, for this photograph and its composition, it makes sense.